Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. We are on episode 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs, A Certain Bomb. Last episode was so interesting, and I went back. Woo on Patreon suggested that she said the dub was good as well, and so I went back and watched episode 1 in the dub, and it is good. So I usually start out a series with the English subs anymore, because I just don't know, and a lot of people recommend the English subs, and it gets me more acquainted with the voice actors. But the English dub is pretty good too. I'll probably end up like I did with Run with the Wind and watch both of them to get the full effect. But so far, so good. I like the concept of this show, the idea of this supernatural agency. It's very X-Men-ish in its organization, and they all have these supernatural abilities. And Atsushi, our protagonist, has the ability to turn into a tiger under the moonlight, which is very cool. So I didn't realize when I was reviewing the last episode that not only I suspected that the abilities were the names of novels or stories, which they are, but I didn't realize that the characters themselves are actual authors in real life. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. So Dazai Osamu is an actual author, and so is Atsushi. And so I decided to do a little bit of research, kind of like what I did with Banana Fish, into more on the stories that their powers are based off of than the actual authors. Because, I mean, you can look at the biographies of the authors, but I'm curious about their abilities and the stories that they're based off of. And luckily, I know Wu sent me some information, and luckily there is a wiki account that kind of details each character. So I just wanted to do Dazai and Atsushi for this first round because they were kind of our two main guys from episode 1. We had Kunikita, and then we got introduced to the other members of the association too, but Dazai and Atsushi were our main ones. And so Atsushi Nakajima, his Beast Beneath the Moonlight ability is referencing Nakajima's story, The Moon Over the Mountain. And according to this, it is based on a Chinese legend of a certain tiger man. The story tells the encounter between a government official named Wan Kan and a man-eating tiger. The creature turns out to be his friend, Li Zhang, who himself believes he's wasted his talents due to fear of failure. And he admits that his cowardly pride and arrogant shame eventually transformed him into a man-eating tiger. So I'm like, that's such a perfect representation of Atsushi, because Atsushi, even though he's very tenacious and very energetic, he has this sense of fear and shame that kind of accompanied him throughout the entire episode. And in the story, it manifests itself into an actual tiger, and that's kind of what happens to him. His ability is he becomes that beast. And so I thought that was really, really cool. Very, very fitting for Atsushi, our main guy here. And then Dazai, Osamu Dazai's story, No Longer Human, his ability is that he nullifies all of the powers of anybody he touches. And No Longer Human is a story about Yozo Oba, a troubled man incapable of revealing his true self to others. Out of fear of detachment towards human interactions, he deems himself disqualified from being human, which I think is really interesting for Dazai's character, because Dazai, I can totally see, he definitely has like a persona when you meet him in this show, like he's putting on a front. I love characters like that. Like, it reminds me of Oikawa, it reminds me of Gojo, it reminds me, those characters that seem one way but then are entirely different. That reminds me of his personality. So I'm really excited based on that. But in the story, he maintains a facade of hollow jocularity, which kind of is Dazai's character as well. And his alienation, though, remains despite his efforts to alleviate his internal suffering. And in the story, he commits suicide, and Dazai in this is suicidal. So it's kind of sad that he feels alienated and that he's not human because of his ability. It prevents him from getting... I could see it preventing him from getting close and trusting with others because they'd be afraid that he's going to nullify their ability. But yeah, that's interesting. It seems very fitting, so I'm very curious to see all of these authors and their stories and kind of research them a little bit. It'll be fun. I gave it up with Banana Fish, so it'll be fun to kind of tie that back in here. But yeah, I am so excited, you guys, to dive into this episode, A Certain Bomb. Miyano Mamoru being Dazai already. I love it. And Wu on Patreon was telling me about the VA. The VA for Kunikita is the same one from Arthur from Banana Fish, is Sosuke from Free. So I was like, as soon as Kunikita came on, I was like, man, I really like his character. It's because of his voice actor. And I've been told that Domeki plays a character in this season. So I'm like, the voice actor for Domeki from Twittering Birds. And I'm like, oh, if I hear that voice, it's all over. It's all over if it's that deep voice. But I'm really excited because there's a couple VAs that I've been told are going to be in this show, and I'm so excited to hear them. Haiji's VA is supposed to be either in this episode or the next, and so I'm really, really excited. Like, we get to connect all these voice actors. It's fun. But I've rambled enough. Let's start this episode, guys, and we are going to start episode 2 of Bungo Stray Dogs here in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And let's go. Yokohama Gangsters Paradise. Oh, ooh. Ooh, what is this? What is this ability? What is this? What is this nonsense? Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, so I want to look up for next episode. I want to look up Kunikita's Dappo Poet because I love the idea of it. Reminds me, I've not watched Death Note yet, but I know what Death Note is about, like writing the name and the person dies. I know it kind of reminded me of that, where he writes an item in the book and then it becomes the item when he rips the page out. I'm like, that's cool. So I want to look up Dappo Poet for Kunikita. And what I'll probably do is, as we're introduced to characters and their abilities, I want to look up those abilities too. So we just got Dappo Poet this episode, but man, this show is a lot funnier than I thought it was going to be. And it's mainly the humor of it. Like, Dazai is so funny. Like, just, like, Dazai, like, Mamoru, his voice acting is so good in this for this character, and like so over the top and cheesy. It reminds me a lot of when he does Tamaki for Ouran High School Host Club, because he's just so like dramatic, and I'm like, that reminds me a lot of that. But Dazai gives me like the mentor vibes, like Urahara, like Kakashi, like Gojo, like very much the mischievous mentor who is smart and is good at what he does, is maybe not the most respected individual in the agency, but is clearly talented enough, and the president trusts his judgment, even if he doesn't necessarily totally get on board with his character. And I really like that for Dazai. Kunikita is so by the book. He reminds me a lot of Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen, which I'm watching at the same time right now. Very by the book character. I like Kunikita a lot. And then we have Tanazaki, which is the one that is Haiji's. When he started yelling, I was like, oh, there's Demon Senpai, is Haiji's voice actor. And his character, I'm really curious about his. Something with snow was with his character, and I'm like, ooh, I like that we're getting some element. We have one character that does the rain, was in his title, and this one's snow. So I'm curious if they're actually elemental, or if there's something maybe, connected to the idea of snow, because snow is cold and isolating. But his character, Tanazaki, said the same thing that Dazai did, is that people that are gifted with these supernatural abilities have something wrong inside of them, which I think is interesting, because why would you call it gifted if there's something wrong? Or that in their personalities, and you can kind of see that with Atsushi. Atsushi has this conflicting feeling of shame and sadness with him all the time, and guilt, because he can turn into this tiger and cause this destruction. And so he has that, as a problem that he feels is inside of him, and he's worried about being able to control it. So I'm curious what they're going to do to try to control his powers, because that is a good point. If you don't remember transforming and what you did while you were in that state, that's kind of a problem. So I'm curious how they're going to try to remedy that. But I really, until we got the flash of the bomb not going off, I was like, wait, what are we doing? And it's like, oh, it was all just a test to test him and see if he was fit for the job. Which, looking back, there were parts of that situation where it was like, okay, they were being really kind of lackadaisy about it, like, oh, doing the rock, paper, scissors. In a real situation, would they have actually done that? I don't know. Dazai, maybe, but I don't know if Kunikita would have gone along with it if it had been a serious situation. He probably would have been like, no, we need to focus, and gotten his attention there. So, oh, but that was really good. The humor in this episode got me. I was like, I have not expected this show to be so funny, and I've really enjoyed the interactions with these characters. Like I was told on Patreon, I have a feeling I'm going to need to write down character names as we go, because there's a lot. Like we had the secretary, and then the president, and then Tanazaki, and we have obviously Kunikita, Dazai, and Atsushi. And then this blonde haired woman and this Dracula looking guy that's got some weird kinetic energy coming off of him. Okay. He's clearly important because the ED focuses a lot on him and Dazai and Atsushi. So I'm assuming he's our main antagonist. And they're like, oh, the were-tiger's been found. It's like, so they were looking for him too. Interesting. So I'm wondering if there's like a rival agency, if you got the defense agency, and if there's a rival villainous agency that's kind of happening at the same time, and that they're against each other. Very interesting. It's kind of like the factions of X-Men, that you got Magneto's side and you've got Professor X's side. So I'm very curious. And then the president, all men are created equal. I wonder what that power is going to be. That sounds intriguing. Like maybe, like perhaps he makes it to where no one can overpower another person. I don't know. I'm very curious what this ability is. But yeah, y'all. So far, so good. I'm really liking this show. I'm excited to go back and rewatch it in the English dub. The dub's great so far, too, so I'm really curious to see who all I hear. The one character that plays Kunikita in the English dub, I think he's the same voice actor as Mustang from Full Metal, so that's exciting. But yeah, I'm curious to know what y'all thought down below. I'm liking this series so far. I'm going to do some research on Dappa Poet for next episode. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back next week with episode 3 of Bungo Stray Dogs. Bye.